Our mission today is to tackle a really powerful system, the one James Clear lays out in Atomic Habits. We want to break it down.
Right. We're going beyond just the catchy phrases. We're digging into the foundational process he talks about, this idea that success, real success, isn't usually about some massive heroic effort.
No big overnight transformation.
No, exactly. It's the product of these small, incremental, almost invisible changes that you make consistently day after day. It really shifts the focus to building systems rather than just chasing after big goals.
Okay, let's jump right into that because the core idea, it's built on this piece of math that feels, well, honestly, a bit counterintuitive at first. This surprising power of just 1% improvement. Why Atomic Habits?
Well, the name's perfect, isn't it? Because it really emphasizes that these are tiny, fundamental building blocks. Like atoms are the building blocks of molecules. These habits are the smallest possible unit of change.
Okay, tiny units. But why do they matter so much?
It's not about the size of the individual change, it's the compounding effect, the mathematics of it.
Right, compounding. I usually think about that with money, like compound interest.
Yeah.
But applying it to, say, learning a skill or getting healthier.
It changes everything. I mean, think about it. If you get just 1% better at something every single day for a year, you don't just end up, 365% better.
No, the math is wilder than that.
It is. You actually end up 37 times better than when you started. That's exponential growth just from repeating tiny, almost unnoticeable efforts. The effort feels small, but the long-term result, it's huge, disproportionately so.
37 times better. Wow. That really highlights the difference between thinking linearly, step by step, and understanding exponential progress. It almost sounds, I don't know, too good to be true.
Well, there's the flip side, right? Which is kind of terrifying if you think about it.
Yeah, that's the part that keeps me up at night. If you get 1% worse each day, if you skip a workout, eat poorly, whatever.
You don't just plateau, you actually trend down towards zero. A tiny bit of neglect, a small bad habit repeated, it eventually erodes basically all your progress.
It's all about the trajectory then, which brings us to that airplane analogy he uses. It's such a great visual.
Oh, it's perfect. So imagine a plane taking off from LA, heading for New York City.
Okay.
Now, if the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, which is tiny, right? At the nose of the plane, that's a shift of maybe, 80, 90 inches? Barely noticeable.
Right, less than the width of a person.
But that single minuscule adjustment compounded over the entire flight across the country means you don't land in New York, you land 225 miles away in Washington, D.C.
Wow. A physical shift of just a few feet at the start results in hundreds of miles difference at the destination. Yeah. That's a really powerful way to think about our daily choices.
Exactly. That tiny shift in how you maybe handle your email first thing or whether you prep your lunch the night before. Those seemingly insignificant habits can completely alter the long-term destination. Your career, your health, even relationships.
Okay, so if these tiny changes, these atomic habits are so powerful, why is it so hard to make them stick? We all start things, new diet, learning French, whatever we feel like we're putting in the effort.
But you see zero results, right? For weeks, maybe months. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. And that leads us straight into this really crucial idea, the importance of systems. Why just focusing on the big goal often sets us up to fail.
Yeah, the problem is largely about our expectations. We expect progress to be linear. Put in X amount of effort, get X amount of result back immediately.
Makes sense. But that's not how it works.
Not usually, no. In reality, there's often this big delay. You enter what Clear calls the valley of disappointment. You're working hard, putting in the reps, but the results curve just lags way behind the effort curve.
And that moment, right there in the valley, feeling like all that effort is wasted?
Yeah.
That's where most people quit, isn't it? How do we push through that feeling?
We have to fundamentally shift how we view that period. The work isn't being wasted, it's being stored. It's building potential. The ice cube analogy explains this perfectly.
Okay, walk me through that.
Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. You start heating the room. The temperature rises slowly. 25 degrees, 26, 28, 30, 31.
Okay, I'm putting energy in. The room's getting warmer.
Yeah.
But the ice cube is just sitting there, still solid, still ice. Feels like nothing's happening.
Exactly. You're investing effort, but there's no visible change. It feels pointless. But then the temperature hits 32 degrees.
The melting point.
And suddenly, boom,
Yeah.
the ice starts melting. That single degree shift from 31 to 32, which felt no different than the jump from 29 to 30, unlocks this massive phase change. All the energy you put in before, all that heat that seemed wasted, it was stored potential, just waiting for that tipping point.
So those breakthrough moments we experience, they aren't really sudden single events. They're the result of all the unseen work that came before. Like the stonecutter analogy, too.
Absolutely. The stonecutter hammers away at this huge rock maybe 100 times. Nothing seems to happen. The rock just sits there.
Stubborn rock.
Right. Then, on the 101st blow, crack. The rock splits clean in two. We tend to credit that final blow, the 101st one.
But it wasn't just that last hit.
No way. It was the cumulative effect of all the previous 100 blows that built up the internal stress, the tension, the potential energy within the rock. Mastery, achieving anything significant, it just requires patience because the biggest gains often happen beneath the surface until that potential is finally released.
Okay, so we need patience. We accept that results are delayed. What should we focus on instead of that lagging outcome? That's where the system idea comes in, right? Forget the goal, focus on the process.
This is such a critical distinction. Let's define terms. A goal is the result you want, right? Win the championship, lose 20 pounds, publish the book.
The finish line.
Yeah. A system, on the other hand, is the collection of daily habits, the routines, the processes that lead to those results. It's the training schedule, the meal plan, the writing practice. It's the input.
The legendary football coach, Bill Walsh, he had a great quote about this, didn't he?
He did. His whole philosophy was basically the score takes care of itself. Focus obsessively on perfecting every tiny detail of the process, the practice drills, the film study, the execution of each play, and the scoreboard. The outcome will eventually reflect that relentless focus on the system.
Makes sense. The book lays out 4 big problems, sort of psychological traps, when we focus only on the goals. Let's unpack those. What's the first one?
The first one really challenges how we think about success. It's this. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals.
Okay. Explain that.
Think about the Olympics. Every single athlete competing wants the gold medal. That's the goal. It's universal among them. Or think about everyone who joins a gym in January. They all have the goal of getting fitter.
Right. So the goal itself doesn't separate the winner from the loser.
Exactly. The desire for the outcome doesn't differentiate. What separates the person who achieves the goal from the one who doesn't is the system they followed. The consistent process of training, dieting, practicing. That's the differentiator, not the ambition itself. Goals suffer from survivorship bias. We see the winners and assume their goal drove them, forgetting everyone else had the same goal.
That completely reframes how you look at competition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's less about wanting it more and more about executing the process better.
Precisely. Okay, the second trap is about permanence. Achieving a goal is often just a momentary change.
Like cleaning your room.
That's the perfect analogy. Your goal is clean the room. You do it, maybe spend an hour tidying up. Goal achieved, the room is clean for now.
But if I haven't changed the underlying habits, leaving clothes on the floor, letting papers pile up,
then the mess comes right back, probably within days. You treated the symptom, the messy room, but not the cause, the sloppy habits, the flawed system.
So lasting change only happens if we fix the system, the inputs, not just chase the temporary output.
Exactly. You have to solve the problem at the system level, fix the process, and the desired outcome tends to take care of itself. And crucially, it sustains itself.
Okay, problem 3 feels insidious. It's that once I achieve X, then I'll finally be happy mindset.
Oh yeah, this one's tough. It basically restricts your happiness. You tie your sense of satisfaction and well-being to some future event that may or may not happen or may not feel the way you expect when it does.
You're constantly deferring happiness.
You are. You're basically saying, I refuse to be happy until I cross this finish line. But a systems-first approach flips that entirely. When you learn to genuinely fall in love with the process itself.
You don't have to wait for permission to feel good.
Right. You can derive satisfaction and pride from simply running the system each day, showing up, doing the work, sticking to the process that becomes the win, regardless of whether the big result has arrived yet. Happiness becomes available now.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the 4th trap. Goals can actually work against long-term progress. The yo-yo effect.
Yeah, think about someone training for a marathon. That goal motivates them for months. Train hard, eat right, long runs on weekends.
Right, total focus.
Then they run the marathon, cross the finish line, Goal achieved, what often happens next?
They stop running, maybe take weeks off, lose all that fitness.
Exactly. The external motivator, the goal is gone, so the system, the training habit, collapses. The purpose of setting a goal is usually to win the game, whatever that game is. But the purpose of building a system is to keep playing the game.
Ah, so it's about continuous improvement, not just hitting a single target and stopping.
That's the essence of it.
Hmm.
True long-term thinking is often goalless thinking. It's about committing to an endless cycle of refinement and improvement. If you have a solid system, you don't need the goal to keep going. The system perpetuates itself.
Okay, to really hammer home this power of systems, and especially that aggregation of marginal gains idea, the book gives us two really powerful stories. One is super personal, starting from a place of real trauma.
Yeah, it starts with the author himself, James Clear. Back in high school, during baseball practice, he had this horrific accident. Got hit square in the face with a teammate's baseball bat.
Oof. I remember reading the details. It wasn't just a broken nose.
No, it was catastrophic. Immediate brain swelling, multiple skull fractures. He had seizures on the floor. He developed amnesia when the doctor asked the year. He thought it was 1998, but it was actually 2002. He thought Bill Clinton was president, not George W. Bush.
That's terrifying. And the physical damage was severe too, right? Medically induced coma.
Yep, because the swelling was so bad.
Mm.
And one detail that just sticks with you, the nurse asked him to try blowing his nose. But the force of the air, because of the fractures in his eye socket, it actually pushed his left eyeball out of the socket. It was just hanging there, held by the eyelid and optic nerve.
Oh my God, that's unimaginable,
Mm.
especially for a young athlete. The recovery must have felt impossible.
It was incredibly slow and frustrating. He had double vision for months. Took 8 months before he could even drive a car safely again. Had a physical therapy just to learn how to walk in a straight line. The next year, he tried out for baseball again and got cut from the varsity team. A huge blow.
So how did that lead to this whole philosophy? Where was the turning point?
The real shift happened a couple of years later when he went to college at Denison University. He realized he couldn't magically undo the injury or fast forward the healing, but he could control his immediate environment and his daily actions. The small stuff.
So he started small, like
Yeah.
really small. Atomic, you might say.
Exactly. He couldn't control making him a baseball team right away, but he could control his dorm room. So he focused on keeping it perfectly neat and tidy. He focused on establishing good sleep habits, going to bed early every night while his friends were out partying.
These sound like tiny things, almost unrelated to getting back to baseball.
They were tiny, but they gave him a sense of control, a feeling of agency when everything else felt chaotic. And that small feeling of success, that belief that he could manage his actions, it started to compound.
Ah, the compounding effect again. What did it lead to?
Well, the discipline spilled over. He developed better study habits, started getting straight A's. He committed to a consistent weightlifting routine, building strength methodically. He went from 170 pounds soaking wet on his 6'4" second frame to a solid 200 pounds of muscle.
Wow. And the outcome?
6 years after that devastating injury, thanks to the relentless accumulation of those small, positive habits, James Clear was named the top male athlete at Denison University and was selected as an academic All-American. His success wasn't one big comeback story. It was the product of thousands of tiny wins stacked one on top of the other, a testament to the system.
That's an incredible personal story. It really shows the power on an individual level. Now, let's shift gears to the other big example, which shows this works on a massive organizational scale, the transformation of British cycling.
Oh, this one's fascinating. Before 2003, British cycling was, well, kind of a joke on the world stage.
That's putting it mildly, right? Their track record was dismal.
Dismal's right. In over a century, since 1908, they'd won only one single Olympic gold medal. And in the biggest race, the Tour de France, they hadn't had a British winner in 110 years. Their performance was so consistently bad.
That bike manufacturers didn't even want them using their bikes.
Exactly. Top companies actually refused to sell them bikes because they thought it would hurt their brand to be associated with such failure.
Wow. And Dave Brailsford comes in as the new performance director, and he brings this philosophy.
The aggregation of marginal gains. It sounds fancy, but the core idea was incredibly simple, just executed relentlessly.
Which was?
Find a 1% improvement in absolutely everything they did. Not just the obvious stuff like training harder, everything, every tiny component of the system.
Okay, so obviously they looked at the bikes, the equipment.
Right, that was the starting point. They redesigned the bike seats for better comfort and power output. They experimented with rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip. They developed electrically heated overshorts to keep the rider's muscles at the absolute optimal temperature. Wind tunnel testing for aerodynamics, of course.
Standard stuff for elite sport, maybe. But they went way beyond that, didn't they? Into areas no one else was looking.
That's where it gets really interesting. They started looking at the completely overlooked details. They tested different massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. Micro-optimizations.
Okay.
They hired a surgeon, not for surgery, but to teach the entire team the absolute best way to wash their hands. Why? To minimize the chances of catching colds or infections that could cost training days.
Hand-washing technique is a performance game. That's dedication.
It is. They even analyzed the pillows and mattresses each rider used, finding the specific combination that led to the optimal night's sleep and recovery for each individual athlete.
Personalized sleep systems. That's incredible detail.
And it didn't stop there. One of my favorite examples. They painted the inside of the team's equipment truck white.
White. Seems random.
So they could spot even the tiniest specks of dust more easily. Dust that might get into the intricate mechanics of those super expensive, finely tuned racing bikes and degrade performance by a tiny fraction. They were literally designing the environment to eliminate microscopic friction.
But wasn't there a risk here, focusing on, dust and hand washing?
Yeah.
Could they lose sight of the main thing, which is riding the bike faster? Analysis paralysis.
That's a fair question. But for Brailsford, the system itself became the goal. The focus wasn't on the distant Tour de France win, it was on winning the 1% battle every single day. They had faith that if they relentlessly optimized every single input training, nutrition, recovery, hygiene, equipment, mindset, the output, the race results, would inevitably follow.
And did they? What were the results of all these marginal gains?
The results were staggering, almost immediate. Just 5 years after Brailsford implemented the system, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team absolutely dominated. They won 60% of the gold medals available in cycling events.
60%, from basically nothing.
And it wasn't a fluke. 4 years later, at the 2012 London Olympics, they were even better. They set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. And in road cycling, where they'd had zero success for over a century.
Bradley Wiggins wins the Tour de France in 2012.
Yes. And then Chris Froome wins it multiple times after that. Between them, they secured 5 Tour de France victories in just 6 years. Hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny 1% improvements completely transformed a failing organization into a global powerhouse.
Wow. Okay, so we've seen the personal impact, the organizational impact. The results are undeniable. Let's get into the underlying mechanics. Section 3, the science of habit. We need to understand that neurological loop that drives all this.
Right. To really grasp how habits form and how we can change them, we have to go back to the foundations of behavioral psychology, specifically to Edward Thorndike and his experiments with cats around 1898.
The puzzle box experiments. This is classic stuff. Basically figuring out how we learn through trial and error, right?
Exactly. Thorndike would put a hungry cat inside a specially built box. To get out and reach a bowl of food waiting outside, the cat had to perform a simple action. Maybe press a lever, pull on a loop of string, something like that.
And initially, the cat has no idea what to do.
Nope. It would just thrash around randomly, scratching the walls, meowing, poking its paws through openings, just trying anything. Eventually, completely by accident, it would happen to hit the lever or pull the string.
The door opens, it gets the food. Reward.
And Thorndike observed that with each subsequent trial in the box, the cat got faster and faster at escaping. It gradually eliminated all the useless actions, the random scratching and meowing, and would eventually go straight for the successful action, the lever press.
It learned the connection. Action leads to reward.
Precisely. Thorndike called this the law of effect. Basically, behaviors that are followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated and strengthened. Behaviors followed by unpleasant consequences tend to be weakened and avoided. Our brains are literally wired to repeat rewarding actions.
So why does the brain bother automating these things? Why create habits at all?
It's all about efficiency, mental energy conservation. Your conscious mind, the part you think of as you, is actually a bottleneck. It can only focus on 1 or 2 novel problems at a time.
Right, it gets overloaded easily.
Totally. So whenever possible, the brain wants to hand off recurring tasks to the non-conscious parts. It creates these mental shortcuts, these automatic scripts. When situation X happens, that's the cue, automatically do action Y, the response, because it reliably leads to outcome Z, the reward. Habits free up our limited conscious attention for more important things.
Okay, so that automatic script, that's the habit loop, the 4 steps. Cue, craving, response, reward. Let's break those down.
Right. Step one is the cue. This is the trigger. It's the bit of information in your environment, internal or external, that predicts a reward is coming.
So like the notification sound on my phone
Yeah.
or the smell of coffee brewing.
Exactly. Or a specific time of day, a location, an emotional state, even the people you're with. Your brain is constantly scanning for these cues, these hints that a familiar reward pathway is available.
Okay, cue detected. What's next? Step 2, craving.
This is the engine, the motivation. And here's a crucial point. You don't actually crave the habit itself. You crave the change in state that the habit delivers.
Ah, okay. So I don't crave smoking a cigarette. I crave the feeling of stress relief it provides.
Precisely. You don't crave scrolling through Instagram. You crave the potential hit of social connection, novelty, or maybe just escaping boredom. The craving is the anticipation, the desire for that predicted change in how you feel.
Got it. Craving leads to step 3, the response.
This is the actual habit, the thought or the action you perform. Whether you actually do the response depends on a couple of things. One is how motivated you are by the craving. The other is the amount of friction involved.
Friction. Like how easy or hard is it to do?
Yeah. Physical friction, mental friction. If performing the response requires too much effort, too much willpower, you probably won't do it even if the craving is strong. Ease is critical.
Makes sense. And finally, step 4, the reward.
The payoff. The reward serves two really important functions. First, obviously, it satisfies the craving that started the whole loop. You got the stress relief, the sugar hit, the feeling of accomplishment.
It delivers the state change you wanted.
Right. But second, and this is vital for learning, the reward teaches your brain. It essentially says, hey, remember that sequence, cue, response. That worked. Let's make that connection stronger. Let's automate this pathway. It closes the loop and tells the brain this pattern is worth repeating.
So if any one of those 4 steps is weak or missing, if the cue isn't obvious, or the craving isn't strong enough, or the response is too difficult, or the reward isn't satisfying, then the behavior just won't stick. It won't become an automatic habit. The loop breaks down. Understanding these 4 stages is the key to intentionally building good habits and breaking bad ones.
Okay, understanding that loop is the foundation. Now we can actually start engineering better habits using that knowledge. This brings us squarely to the 4 laws of behavior change. But before we dive into Law 1, you mentioned a cardinal rule that underpins all of them.
Yes, there's one fundamental principle of how our brains are wired, especially our older, more primitive parts. It's this. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
Instant gratification. Our brains love that.
They absolutely do. We evolved in environments where immediate payoffs were crucial for survival. Even though modern life often requires delaying gratification, that ancient wiring is still dominant. So these 4 laws are designed to work with that reality, not fight against it. Okay, let's get into it. Law 1, make it obvious. This targets the cue stage of the loop. And the flip side, the inversion, is make it invisible. The challenge here, you said, is that habits become unconscious.
That's the main hurdle for this law. Our brains are incredibly good at automating things. Once a habit is formed, we often perform it without any conscious thought or awareness. We just react to the cue automatically.
Which is great for efficiency, but bad if it's a habit we want to change.
Exactly. It's dangerous because you can slip into an old, unwanted pattern before your conscious brain even realizes what's happening. You've eaten the cookie before you even registered the craving.
The paramedic story really brought that unconscious pattern recognition to life for me.
Oh yeah, that's a great illustration. This woman, years of experience as a paramedic, is at a family dinner. She looks at her father-in-law and suddenly gets this strong feeling, tells him he needs to go to the hospital right now.
But you can explain why, right? Just a gut feeling.
Exactly. She just said, I don't like the way you look. It turns out her brain, trained by seeing thousands of patients, had unconsciously picked up on incredibly subtle cues in his facial blood flow patterns. Tiny signs that indicated a major artery was blocked. Her conscious mind hadn't processed it, but her habituated pattern recognition system knew something was wrong.
Wow. Okay, so if our habits run on autopilot, the first step to changing them must be to actually see them, bring them into conscious awareness.
That leads directly to the first practical application, the habit scorecard. It's a really simple but powerful exercise.
How does it work?
You literally just list out your daily habits. Waking up, checking your phone, brushing teeth, making coffee, commuting, everything. Then next to each one, you put a plus sign, plus if it's a positive habit contributing to your goals, a minus sign if it's negative, or an equal sign if it's neutral.
So it forces you to actually notice the things you do automatically.
Precisely. And importantly, it helps you realize that even those bad habits, the minus ones like biting your nails or procrastinating online, they aren't inherently bad. They are actually very effective at solving some immediate problem, like relieving stress or boredom. They're just often solving the wrong problem in the long run. Awareness is the starting point.
Okay, once we're aware of the habit and the cue, the next step is clarity, using an implementation intention. This combats that vagueness that kills so many good intentions.
Absolutely. We often have vague goals like, I want to exercise more or I should meditate, but those intentions get lost in the chaos of daily life because they lack specifics. An implementation intention fixes that.
It gives it a time and a place.
Exactly. The formula is super concrete. I will behavior at time and location. So instead of I should meditate, you commit. I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room chair. Studies showed this simple act of pre-planning dramatically increases the likelihood you'll follow through. It removes the decision-making burden in the moment.
Okay, clear plan. Now, how do we link this new habit to our existing routines? That's habit stacking, right?
Yes, this leverages habits you already have. You use an existing automatic habit as the cue for the new habit you want to build. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Give me an example.
After I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will do 1 minute of push-ups. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. You're essentially latching the new behavior onto a firmly established neural pathway, making it much easier to remember and initiate. It taps into the Diderot effect. One positive change triggers another.
Smart. Okay, so we make cues conscious, specific, and linked. But the ultimate lever for Law 1 seems to be environment design, shaping the world around us.
Environment is huge. It's like the invisible hand shaping our behavior constantly. We tend to act based on what's easiest, what's most obvious, what's right in front of us.
The hospital cafeteria study is the classic example here, isn't it?
It really is. They wanted people to drink more water and less sugary soda. They didn't run a health campaign, didn't put up posters.
What do they do?
They simply changed the choice architecture. They added bottled water to the refrigerators right next to the cash registers, where previously only soda had been easily accessible. They also put baskets of water near food stations throughout the cafeteria.
They made water more obvious and convenient.
That's it. And the results? Soda sales dropped by over 11%. Bottled water sales jumped by almost 26%. They didn't change anyone's motivation or willpower. They just tweaked the environment to make the desired choice the path of least resistance.
Which leads perfectly into the inversion of Law 1.
Yeah.
Make it invisible. If cues trigger habits, the most effective way to break a bad habit is often to remove the cue from your environment altogether.
This is so much more effective than relying on willpower. Self-control is a finite resource. It gets exhausted. Trying to constantly resist temptation in a cue-rich environment is a losing battle long-term. Reducing your exposure to the cue is the smarter strategy.
The Vietnam War heroin study is a stark example of this.
It really is. A surprisingly high percentage of U.S. soldiers in Vietnam, maybe up to 20%, became addicted to heroin while deployed. Experts back home were predicting a massive addiction crisis when these soldiers returned.
But that's not what happened, was it?
No. The shocking finding was that 9 out of 10 of those addicted soldiers simply stopped using heroin almost immediately upon returning to the United States. Spontaneously. Why?
The environment changed completely.
Exactly. All the powerful cues associated with heroin use in Vietnam, the intense stress, the peer group, the easy availability, the boredom, they all vanished overnight when they landed back home. The new environment lacked the triggers, so the habit, even a powerful addiction, often just faded away without formal treatment. The environment was driving the behavior.
So for us, if you want to watch less TV, hide the remote in a drawer. If you waste time on your phone, charge it in another room overnight.
Yeah.
Make the cue invisible.
Reduce the friction for good habits, increase it for bad ones by removing the trigger. That's Law 1.
Okay, powerful stuff. Let's move to Law 2. Make it attractive. This focuses on the craving stage.
Yeah.
And the inversion is make it unattractive. This one seems tied to our brain chemistry, specifically dopamine.
Absolutely. Dopamine is the molecule of desire, of motivation. And the fascinating thing research shows is that dopamine spikes not just when you receive a reward, but actually more intensely when you anticipate it.
Ah, so the craving itself is driven by that dopamine hit of anticipation.
Yes. Think about gambling. The slot machine lights up, makes exciting noises. That anticipation of a potential win floods the brain with dopamine before you even pull the lever or find out if you won. It's the anticipation, the craving that compels the action. So to make a habit attractive, we need to amplify that positive anticipation.
How do we do that deliberately? One technique is temptation bundling.
Right. This is a clever way to link something you want to do with something you need to do. The formula is, after I do habit I need, I will get to do habit I want.
Pairing the unpleasant with the pleasant.
Exactly. The famous example is Ronan Martin, an engineering student in Ireland. He knew he should exercise, but he found it boring. What he loved doing was watching Netflix.
So he combined them.
He literally hacked his stationary bike, he wired it up to his laptop and TV, and wrote some code so that Netflix would only play if he was cycling at a certain minimum speed.
Uh-huh. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So the exercise became the gateway to the thing he actually craved.
Precisely. He bundled the temptation Netflix with the necessary action. Not to do this with anything. Only listen to my favorite podcast while I'm doing chores, or only get my fancy coffee on days I go to the gym.
Making the required habit the ticket to the desired one. Very smart. What else makes habits attractive? Group influence seems huge.
Oh, it's massive. We are fundamentally social creatures. We have this deep, innate desire to belong, to fit in, to earn the respect and approval of our peers. So we naturally tend to imitate the habits of three key groups.
Which?
The close, our family, friends, the people we spend the most time with. The many. The tribe, the prevailing culture, the norms of the society around us. And the powerful. Those we admire, those with status and prestige.
The study about obesity spreading through social networks really highlights the power of the close, doesn't it?
It's startling. Research from Harvard found that if you had a close friend who became obese, your own chances of becoming obese increased by a staggering 57% in the same time period. Habits, even health habits, are incredibly contagious within our social circles. We subconsciously absorb the norms around us.
And the power of the many, the tribe, is shown by things like the Asch conformity experiments.
Yeah, those are mind-bending. Solomon Asch put people in a group and showed them lines of different lengths. Everyone else in the group, who were secretly actors, would deliberately give the wrong answer about which lines matched.
And the real participant would often just go along with the obviously wrong answer.
Astonishingly often, about 75% of participants conformed to the incorrect group answer at least once, even when it clearly contradicted what they were seeing with their own eyes. The pressure to conform, to not stick out from the tribe, is incredibly powerful.
So the practical strategy here isn't necessarily to fight conformity, but to choose your tribe wisely.
Exactly. The most effective way to build better habits is often to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to get fit, join a gym where people are motivated and consistent. If you want to read more, join an active book club.
Like the nerd fitness example, creating a community where fitness became attractive to people who identified as nerds.
Precisely. Or think about MIT's famous robotics class. The environment was so intense and focused that 4 future NASA astronauts came out of that one class. When the behavior you want is the standard, the norm, it becomes incredibly attractive to adopt it yourself. You want to belong.
Okay, so to invert this law, to make it unattractive, we need to do the opposite. Reframe the habits association.
Yes, it involves changing your mindset, shifting the perceived benefits. Alan Carr's method for quitting smoking is a great example of this kind of cognitive reframing.
How does that work? He doesn't focus on the negatives like cancer.
Not primarily. His approach is about systematically dismantling the perceived benefits of smoking. He teaches smokers to reframe the craving. Instead of thinking, oh, I need a cigarette to calm my nerves, you actively rehearse the thought, smoking doesn't relieve my stress. It causes it by creating withdrawal. It destroys my nerves. It doesn't soothe them.
So you consciously associate the cue, the craving, with negative feelings and outcomes rather than the false promise of relief.
Exactly. You highlight the actual downside, making the habit seem less appealing, less rewarding. You basically train your brain to see the habit as unattractive, weakening the craving over time.
Fascinating. Okay, on to law 3, make it easy. This targets the response stage, the actual doing of the habit. The inversion is make it difficult. This seems all about reducing friction.
It really is. And the first hurdle here is often distinguishing between motion versus action.
What's the difference?
Motion is when you're busy planning, strategizing, researching, organizing, things that feel productive but don't actually produce an outcome. Action is when you're actually doing the thing that delivers the result.
Ah, I know this one well. Spending hours researching the best workout plan instead of just doing 10 push-ups, that's motion, not action.
Exactly. We often use motion as a form of procrastination because it feels like progress, but it doesn't move the needle. Action is what counts. Like Voltaire said, the best is the enemy of the good. Just starting is better than waiting for the perfect plan.
The photography class experiment illustrates this perfectly.
Right. A professor divided his class into two groups. The quantity group was told they'd be graded purely on the number of photos they submitted. 100 photos got an A, 90 a B, and so on. Quality didn't matter for the grade.
Okay. And the other group?
The quality group was told they only needed to produce one single photo all semester, but it had to be nearly perfect to get an A.
So, what happened? Who took the better photos in the end?
The quantity group. They spend the whole semester out shooting, experimenting, making mistakes, learning from feedback, constantly acting. The quality group mostly sat around theorizing about what makes a perfect photo, getting paralyzed by perfectionism. They were stuck in motion.
So, practice, repetition, action.
Yeah.
That's what leads to improvement.
Absolutely. And this ties into how habits actually form. It's not really about time. The whole 21 days to form a habit thing is largely a myth. It's about frequency, the number of repetitions.
The more you do it, the more automatic it becomes.
Exactly. Automaticity is a function of reps, not duration. So to get those reps in, we need to make the behavior as easy as possible. We need to follow the law of least effort.
Which basically states that humans, like water flowing downhill, will naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work or energy.
It's a fundamental principle. Think about the spread of agriculture across the globe. It spread 2 to 3 times faster across Eurasia, east-west, than it did down the Americas, north-south. Why? Yep. The east-west axis had much more consistent climate zones and day lengths, making it far easier for crops and farming techniques adapted to one area to spread to others. Less environmental friction. The north-south axis had huge variations, creating more friction and slowing the spread. We naturally choose the path of least resistance.
So we need to engineer our own lives to make the good habits the path of least resistance. Reduce friction and prime the environment.
Exactly. Think like those Japanese manufacturers using lean production, constantly looking for ways to eliminate waste and inefficiency. Addition by subtraction. How can you remove steps between you and the desired behavior?
Like the example of Oswald Knuckles, the IT guy who resets the room.
Yeah, I love that. After watching TV, he wouldn't just toss the remote aside and leave the blanket crumpled. He'd take 30 seconds to fold the blanket neatly, put the remote back in its specific spot, maybe tidy the coffee table.
Why? It seems like extra work.
He was priming the environment for his future self, making it easier to relax or start the next activity without friction. It's about reducing the small hassles that derail good intentions. Want to practice guitar more? Don't keep it in the case in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. Make the start frictionless.
And the ultimate tool for making the start frictionless is the 2-minute rule. This one feels like a real game changer.
It's brilliant because it tackles the inertia, the difficulty of just getting started. The rule is, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
So you scale it way, way down.
You scale it down to a tiny gateway habit. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. Study for class becomes open my notes.
The goal isn't the full habit initially, it's just mastering the art of showing up.
That's it. The first 2 minutes should be ridiculously easy, requiring almost zero motivation. Once you've started, once you've overcome that initial resistance, it's much easier to continue. Twyla Tharp, the famous choreographer, talked about her workout ritual.
What was it?
She said the ritual wasn't the demanding 2-hour workout itself. The ritual was getting dressed, walking outside her building, and hailing a cab to take her to the gym. Once she completed that simple 2-minute sequence, the rest of the workout happened automatically. Master the beginning.
Love it. Okay, now for the inversion. Make it difficult. How do we add friction to bad habits? The idea of a commitment device or a Ulysses Pact comes up.
Yes, this is when you make a choice in the present that locks in better behavior in the future, making the bad habit harder or impossible. The historical example is Victor Hugo.
The author of Les Miserables. What did he do?
Well, he also wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but he was facing a crippling deadline and kept getting distracted. His solution was extreme. He gathered up all of his clothes, every single outfit, and asked his assistant to lock them away in a large chest.
Leaving him with
Just a large, shapeless shawl to wear because he literally had nothing appropriate to wear outside. He couldn't leave the house. He was physically forced to stay inside at his desk and write. He made procrastination incredibly difficult.
That's commitment. How can we apply that today? Maybe less drastically. Automation seems key.
Automation is a fantastic way to make good habits easy and bad habits difficult. The invention of the cash register is a great example. James Ritty invented it partly to stop his employees from stealing from the till at his saloon.
How did it work?
By automatically locking the money drawer after each transaction and ringing a bell, it made skimming cash much, much harder and more obvious. It automated honest behavior by making the bad habit impractical. Today, we automate good habits all the time. Automatic bill payments, automatic savings transfers for retirement.
Takes willpower out of the equation.
Exactly. And you can increase friction for bad habits too. Use website blockers, delete distracting apps from your phone, unplug the TV and put the cord in another room. Make the undesirable action require more effort.
Okay, Law 3 is about ease and friction.
Yeah.
Let's hit the final one, Law 4. Make it satisfying. This tackles the reward stage. The inversion is make it unsatisfying. And this goes right back to that core conflict you mentioned earlier.
Yes, the fundamental conflict between our ancient brain's desire for immediate rewards and the demands of modern life, which often requires delaying gratification.
Our brain evolved in an immediate return environment, right? Find berries, eat now, sea lion, run now.
Exactly. Actions had immediate consequences, vital for survival. But we now live largely in a delayed return environment. You work hard today on a project that pays off weeks later. You exercise now for health benefits years down the line. You save money now for retirement decades away.
And our brains just aren't naturally wired for that delay. Good habits often feel like cost now, benefit much later. Bad habits are the reverse benefit now, cost later.
That's the mismatch, which is why Law 4 is crucial. We have to find a way to inject immediate reinforcement into our good habits. We need to feel successful, satisfied, rewarded right away, even if it's just in a small way.
The hand-washing study in Karachi, Pakistan showed how powerful this is. Getting people to wash their hands consistently was a huge public health challenge.
Right, people knew it was important for preventing disease, but the behavior wasn't sticking. The benefit not getting sick later was too delayed. So researchers partnered with Procter & Gamble.
And they provided soap.
Not just any soap. They provided Safeguard soap, which was specifically engineered to lather up really nicely and have a pleasant, clean smell. They didn't just focus on the health outcome, they made the act of washing itself more enjoyable.
They added immediate sensory rewards, made the process itself satisfying.
Precisely. It made hand washing feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
And the result? Compliance soared, and 6 years later, childhood diarrhea rates in the area had fallen by 52% and pneumonia by 50%. That immediate satisfaction drove long-term behavioral change.
Wow. So how do we apply that to habits that don't have an obvious sensory reward, like, say, making sales calls or writing code? The habit tracker seems key here.
The habit tracker is brilliant for this. It provides immediate visual proof of progress, which is inherently satisfying to our brains. The paperclip strategy is a classic example.
Tell me about that one.
There was this young stockbroker, Trent Dearsmid. Early in his career, he put 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paper clips. Every time he made a sales call, he'd move 1 paper clip from the full jar to the empty jar.
So he had this simple visual measure of his effort throughout the day.
Exactly. He wasn't focused on the commissions or the deals closed. Those were delayed rewards. He focused on the process making the calls. And the simple, satisfying act of moving a paper clip after each call provided immediate reinforcement. It made the effort tangible.
And the results.
Within 18 months, he was bringing in $5 million to the firm. He attributes a lot of it to that simple paperclip system, keeping him consistent. Habit trackers work because they make progress obvious. They're attractive. You don't want to break the streak. And marking that X or moving that clip is immediately satisfying.
Love it. Okay, the inversion. Make it unsatisfying. How do we attach an immediate cost or punishment to a bad habit? The habit contract sounds pretty hardcore.
It can be. A habit contract is basically a formal agreement, usually verbal or written, where you state your commitment to a habit and outline the specific, immediate punishment that will occur if you fail. And crucially, you involve accountability partners.
Like the example of Brian Harris, the entrepreneur trying to lose weight.
Right. He wrote a contract with his wife and his personal trainer. It laid out his specific diet and exercise goals. And the penalties for failing weren't vague guilt trips. They were immediate and painful.
Like what?
Things like ante. If he failed to track his food intake, he had to immediately pay his trainer $100. If he didn't weigh himself, he had to pay his wife $500. He even had clauses about having to dress up in ridiculous outfits if he missed workouts.
Ouch. The key is the immediacy in the paying, right? It has to override the immediate pleasure of skipping the workout or eating the junk food.
Exactly. The punishment needs to hit now and be unpleasant enough to make you stick to the plan. It leverages that cardinal rule.
Yeah.
What is immediately punished is avoided.
Okay, those 4 laws make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, and their inversions give us a powerful toolkit for building and breaking habits. But the journey doesn't end there. Section 5. Sustaining mastery. Dealing with the long haul. The first danger seems to be complacency, the downside of automaticity.
Yeah, once a habit becomes truly automatic, effortless, we kind of stop paying attention. We go into autopilot, which is efficient, but it also means we become less sensitive to feedback. Small errors can creep in unnoticed, and our performance can plateau or even decline over time.
Good enough becomes the enemy of great.
Exactly. Just running the habit isn't enough for mastery. You need that automaticity plus ongoing deliberate practice, reflection, and fine-tuning to keep improving or even just maintain a high standard.
We also need to be smart about which habits we try to build. This brings in the role of talent and genes. The book's take is interesting. Genes don't lock in destiny, but they do influence our potential.
Right. Genes kind of determine your areas of opportunity. They predispose you to excel more easily in some areas than others. You have to play a game where your natural strengths give you an advantage.
Like the comparison between Michael Phelps and Hichem El Garoud.
Perfect example. Phelps, 6'4", incredibly long torso, relatively short legs, huge wingspan, a body practically designed for swimming.
Right.
El Garoud, 5'9", long legs, short torso, ideal physique for middle distance running.
Both absolute legends in their sports.
But if they swapped sports, Phelps would likely be a terrible runner, and El Garoud would struggle immensely in the pool. Their genetics gave them a massive advantage in their chosen fields. The key is to pick the right pond to swim in. Find the arena where your natural inclinations and abilities are favored.
And if you can't find an existing game where you have a natural edge,
Then the strategy is to create your own game by combining your skills in a unique way. Reduce the competition by being multi-skilled.
like Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator.
Exactly. He freely admits he's not the world's best artist. He's not the world's funniest comedian. But he is a decent artist, plus a decent humorist, plus he has years of experience in the corporate business world. By combining those 3 average skills, he created a unique niche corporate satire cartoons where he became the best in the world because almost no one else had that specific combination. Find your unique intersection of skills.
Smart. Okay, once we're playing the right game, how do we stay motivated over the long run, especially when things get tough or boring? The Goldilocks rule comes in here.
Yes, this is about managing difficulty. Peak motivation, the feeling of being in the zone or flow, happens when you're working on tasks that are right on the edge of your current abilities.
Not too easy, not too hard. Just right.
Just right. Like Goldilocks in the porridge. If a task is too easy, you get bored and lose focus. If it's way too hard, you get discouraged, frustrated, and want to quit. The sweet spot is a task that challenges you just enough where you feel stretched but capable of success with effort.
Steve Martin's long comedy career seems like a great example of managing this over decades.
Absolutely. People think he became an overnight sensation, but he actually spent 18 years grinding away, honing his stand-up act. He didn't try to reinvent his entire routine constantly.
What did he do?
He would keep most of his act filled with jokes he knew worked, jokes that were comfortably within his ability to deliver well, but he would always add just 1 or 2 minutes of new experimental material at the edge of his comfort zone. He kept himself challenged, but also ensured enough success, laughs, to stay motivated. He lived the Goldilocks rule.
That constant balancing act. But even with manageable challenges, the biggest enemy over the long term, the book argues, is simply boredom.
It really is the ultimate villain for habits. We crave novelty. When a habit becomes routine, when it stops feeling new and exciting, that's often when we fall off track. We start making excuses, skipping days.
So what separates the pros from the amateurs here?
It's the ability to handle the boredom of practice. Professionals stick to the schedule even when they're uninspired. They show up and do the reps even when it feels tedious. They understand that consistency, even boring consistency, is the only path to maintaining those marginal gains and achieving mastery. Amateurs only practice when they feel motivated.
Embracing the boredom is part of the system. Finally, how do we combat complacency and ensure we're still improving, not just mindlessly repeating? Reflection and review.
This is crucial for long-term mastery. You need deliberate systems for reviewing your progress, identifying weaknesses, and consciously deciding how to improve. It keeps you engaged and prevents mindless repetition.
Pat Riley's Career Best Effort program with the Lakers is a fantastic example of systematizing this.
Yeah, back in 1986, Riley wanted to push his already talented Lakers team to the next level. He didn't just tell them to play harder, he implemented the CBE system. They meticulously tracked each player's key stats, going back years, even to high school, to establish a reliable baseline performance level for each individual.
Okay, they had the baseline. Then what?
Then, he asked each player for just a 1% improvement over their own established baseline in their key areas for the upcoming season. Not compared to teammates, but compared to their personal best. They tracked everything, even hustle plays like diving for loose balls.
So it made improvements specific, measurable, and personal.
Exactly. It forced even the superstars to stay focused on incremental gains and held everyone accountable to continuous improvement, not just resting on talent. And the result? The Lakers won back-to-back NBA championships. That system drove sustained excellence.
How can we apply that personally?
Through things like conducting a simple annual review. What went well last year? What didn't? Where did I fall short? Or an integrity report. Are my current habits aligned with my stated core values? Am I living the way I claim I want to live?
That regular check-in forces you to stay conscious and make adjustments.
And this process also cultivates identity flexibility.
Mm.
It's dangerous to tie your identity too tightly to one specific role or achievement. I am a CEO, I am a marathon runner, I am a top student.
Because when that role changes or ends, your identity feels threatened.
Exactly. If you get injured and can no longer run marathons, who are you? If you retire from being CEO, what's your purpose? It's much more resilient to define your identity around the process or the type of person you aspire to be. I'm the type of person who enjoys physical challenges, or I'm the type of person who values learning and growth. That allows your identity to adapt and evolve as circumstances change.
Fascinating. That brings our deep dive to a close. It's been incredibly insightful unpacking this blueprint for continuous improvement. To try and synthesize it all, that Sorite's paradox, the pile of coins analogy, seems fitting.
Yeah, it really does. One single coin doesn't make a person rich. One tiny habit change doesn't transform your life overnight. But add another coin, and another, and another. Stack those atomic habits consistently, relentlessly. Eventually, you have to concede that the accumulation of those small, seemingly insignificant units created the entire fortune, the complete transformation.
It drives home that final crucial takeaway. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
That's the core message. Stop obsessing only about the finish line. Focus intensely on building, refining, and executing the daily systems, the inputs. Trust that if you nail the process, the outcomes will largely take care of themselves. Embrace the endless cycle of atomic refinement. Let compounding work its magic.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you, our listener, to take away and mull over. Given how profoundly our environment shapes our behavior, often unconsciously, take a hard look around your own space right now, your workspace, your kitchen, your living room. What invisible cues might be subtly triggering the habits you want to break, the distraction, the procrastination, the unhealthy choices?
And more importantly, what one simple, tiny 1% friction-reducing change could you make today, right now? Could you move your phone charger out of the bedroom? Clear the clutter off your desk. Lay out your gym clothes before bed. What small tweak can make the better choice the easier, more automatic choice tomorrow? Because the system, your system, starts with that very next action.